Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my question is to the Chief Minister and the Minister for Police. Minister, your Education Minister described a number of recent serious violent incidences at Katherine High School as, quote, little issues. Chief Minister, will you also tell the parents and carers of Katherine school children and young people that you also think that these issues are just little issues?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And of course, law and order and public safety and the support and wellbeing of our police is our #1 priority, and it remains that way. And absolutely, Opposition Leader, unfortunately, Katherine High School has been in the media for weeks now for all the wrong reasons. And it's incredibly unfortunate, both because we want to have safe streets, safe schools. Parents need to have that peace of mind that when they're sending their child off to school, they're going to be safe and they're going to be getting a great education. And so whenever there are instances, it obviously causes great concern among the student community, the teachers and the parents. And now what we've seen is a number of responses from our police, our public housing safety officers, a range of responses in Katherine off the back of the operation we ran over the summer period. And so I really want to thank the department staff in particular who've really brought in some strong leadership to make sure that we are supporting that school with everything they need. Our attendance officers are doing an incredible job. And this is something we pulled together straight away after the election to make sure that we are getting kids to school, so they are supporting. NT Police are doing an amazing job, and I believe there's been some wanding and other activities happening at that school to send a very clear message to kids who are doing the wrong thing that it is not okay, to give comfort to parents that we are making sure we're sending a very, very strong signal, and also our Aboriginal liaison officers who are just the most incredible people out there providing that on-the-ground support in our communities. And so we will continue that work. It continues to be a disappointing period, but I think what the Minister for Education is really getting to the core of, as being, of course, the member for Katherine as well, is that we can't detract from the really, really good things that are happening at Katherine High School. The incredible kids, the incredible teachers, the learning that is happening in that school. And when you have a town where there is only that one high school, it's really important that people have confidence and certainty in that product. So it's...
Yes, please take your seat, Chief Minister. What's your point of order, Leader of the Opposition?
Order 110, relevance, Madam Speaker. The question specifically asked if the Chief Minister will also trivialise these issues like her Education Minister and call them little issues.
Chief Minister, you have the call.
Look, if the Opposition Leader wants to cherry-pick quotes, she can fill her boots, Madam Speaker. I'm talking about making sure that we have a community that is safe, we've just sent, I think it was another 10 police from the recruit squad recently down to Katherine, that we have a school community supported by strong school leadership, that we have parents who have the confidence to send their kids to school, that we have school-based constables, Aboriginal liaison officers, as school attendance officers, an entire team working with that school to support our kids.
Member for Fanny Bay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is also to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, 2 years ago, Territorians awoke to the terrible news of the senseless and tragic loss of life of a young man killed at his place of work by a perpetrator on bail, and that then led to an outpouring of community anger and frustration at the failure of the former Labor government to act on violent crime and keep Territorians safe. This was the start of Declan's Law, and our CLP government implemented Declan's Law in the first sittings of Parliament in October 2024. I know Samara Laverty was here for that. Chief Minister, how has the senseless death of Declan Laverty been honoured through these changes to our bail and knife crime laws, and how are these making Territorians safe?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Member for Fanny Bay. And like you, woke to the shock of that news 2 years ago. And we send our sincerest and most heartfelt condolences to Samara and Bridget Laverty, who today is an unimaginable, unspeakable day. I spoke to Samara this morning and conveyed our sympathies to her. And I went and placed some flowers at Declan's memorial at the BWS, where his life was taken away from him all too soon. And the killing of Declan sparked a wave of movement right across the territory. Rallies in the thousands of people on the steps of Parliament House, people across the territory, concerned, angered, and standing up to the government to say enough is enough. We can't take this anymore. And so Declan became a symbol, a rally point around change. And we are so proud to have delivered that change. That first sittings of Parliament in October last year, we put through the Parliament entirely on urgency our reducing crime package, of which Declan's Law is something we worked with Samara Laverty on to make sure that Declan's legacy is remembered, to make sure that his death sparked change for the better for a community crying out for a government that would do something about it. And so we are very proud to have worked closely with Samara on that, to have had her here during Parliament, during the passage of that bill. And today, 2 years on, we remember him, we remember the work ahead of us, and we reflect on how powerful a legacy he leaves in what we've been able to achieve so far. And so in looking to that reducing crime package we took through the Parliament in October, we've had, under post and boast laws, 10 individuals have been charged in relation to post and boast, and all of those are before the courts. For wanding, which was a key part of Declan's Law, Samara really wanted action on knife crime. We've had 3,162 people scanned, 35 separate scanning activities, 50 weapons seized, of which 41 were edged weapons. That's 50 weapons that didn't make it into our community and possibly perpetrate violence on others. 15 people were arrested. And we are so proud that those wanding reforms are making a difference. We will never know the lives that saved. Ram raids, we've had 15 youths charged with the new ram raid offences. Public nuisance drinking, there's been 136 infringement notices issued. And when it comes to bail, Madam Speaker, we are seeing some really strong results from our strengthened bail laws, because we know that people who do the wrong thing should only have limited chances, and we are putting the rights of people to be safe above the rights of offenders.
Member for Daly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. Minister, you described a string of recent serious violent incidents at Katherine High School as little issues. The Chief Minister says 2025 is your government's year of action. So why have you downplayed and not acted on these serious violent incidents other than to seek a briefing from your department? Do Katherine parents agree with you that these serious violent incidents are little issues?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, Member for Daly. And I absolutely am very happy to speak about the Katherine High School, a high school that does have amazing things happening in it. They've got the Student Learning Commission, which I was just met with the other week, and they have great leaders in that school. So to say that you're, again, as the Chief Minister said, cherry-picking a little quote that came from the media that came out of the Katherine High School, as the Minister and also as the member for Katherine, I 100% have been championing, whether it be a school in Katherine, whether it be a school right across the territory, to make sure that staff and students feel safe and are supported in their learning environment. So that is the most important thing. We have put student attendance officers in the school and engagement officers in the school to support the school while they have been going through some troubling times. And I will not back away from that. They have had some very, each week, sometimes it was even daily, they've had concerns happening in that school environment. And as the Minister, I 100% will acknowledge that, and I will not back away from it, because I want schools in my electorate and right across the territory to be safe environments, as I said, for staff and students. We've got school-based policing happening there. We've actually got one of the school-based police that's now retired back in to help support that school, because we know that, Madam Speaker, the relationships that she has with those students and with community are absolutely of the most importance for that school to come together and move forward. And as I said, we've got the student leaders in that school that just met recently with the Learning Commission. And, we can either focus on the negatives or we can talk about the amazing things that happen at that school. We've got great Teach for Australia teachers at that school. We've got fantastic leadership. In fact, the leadership at that school, Madam Speaker, the whole of the leadership team, apart from the principal, turned over this year. So that was also...
Take your seat, Minister. What's your point of order, Member for Daly?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 110 relevance. Just getting back to the question itself. Do Catherine parents agree with you that these serious violent incidents are little issues?
Take your seat. Minister, you've got the
And
floor.
I think I'm
Plenty of
absolutely
time.
answering the question, Madam Speaker, and I'm very happy to talk about, as I said, the Catherine High School. I meet with parents regularly, whether I'm out at the shopping centre. I've just spoken with some parents with some concerns happening at the school this morning. And I pick up on the constant interjections from the opposition leader, which she's asking, her opposition is asking me the question. She can at least have the decency to listen and not waste time. So
Silence, please.
here, I will, as I said, I will not shy away from addressing all of the issues that are happening in my community as the Education Minister. And I think more than the previous government did, which had 3 education ministers in their whole time, I am absolutely out there listening to people, talking to families, listening to the students and the teachers alike, and making sure that all schools are safe environments.
Member for Casuarina.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Mining and Energy. Minister, we repeatedly hear from vocal opponents of resource development that our onshore gas industry provides no royalties to the anti-government, and that the industry does not provide employment for Territorians. Minister, your recent second trip to the Beetaloo shows that CLP's strong commitment to the driving territory gas developments forward and bring significant economic investment and royalties for Territorians. We know these investments represent a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Territorians. Minister, can you please outline to the Assembly the current and developing benefits of our onshore gas industry to Territorians?
Minister for Mining and Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Casuarina for his important question. And I also recognise the excellent work he does in the electorate, especially the volunteer work with the seniors in the electorate. So well done. Madam Speaker, before I get started answering this question, I just want to say that I love the gas industry and I support it wholeheartedly, and so does the government right now. And also, Madam Speaker, to the activists that are out there, and as the Chief Minister recently said, get on a plane, go back to Melbourne, wherever you're from, you're not welcome here. Because, Madam Speaker, the gas industry is very important to the Northern Territory. And as a very powerful person just recently said, drill, baby, drill. Madam Speaker, the Mereenie and the Palm Valley and the Dingo gas fields in Central Australia have been operating for some 40 years and now managed under a commercial joint venture arrangement operated by Central Petroleum. Madam Speaker, the NT does receive royalties from the onshore gas production from Central Petroleum and its partners. And last year, Madam Speaker, we received approximately $8 million in royalties. Madam Speaker, this $8 million pays for the police, pays for the education and pays for the health system. Those industries are vitally important to this Northern Territory, and they've been let down by the previous Labor government because we know the health system is in chaos, we know the education system is in chaos. This is where we get the money to pay for those systems, to pay for the health, the education and the policing. Madam Speaker, Central Petroleum supplies approximately 30 terajoules of gas, which is about half our gas demand each day. So they have been keeping the lights on for us in the Northern Territory. This is particularly critical given the gas supply shortages from the Black Tip, and the NT government has a gas sales agreement with Central until 2030, providing energy security for the Northern Territory. Madam Speaker, to put it very simply and very bluntly, without our gas industry, the Territory will grind to a halt. Currently, around 88% of electricity generated in NT is sourced from the gas industry, and this is despite Labor's pursuit of their 50% renewables by 2030 target at a massive cost to the Northern Territory and a complete failure. We need gas to keep the lights on for Territorians today and to build the economy for tomorrow, for my children and for our grandchildren. Madam Speaker, the gas industry is super important. It pays for the education, and I support the gas industry. Thank you.
Member for Gwadja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Attorney-General. Attorney-General, the Auditor-General's report tabled last night has found that social media posts made by several CLP ministers has breached the Public Information Act by publishing misleading information and promoting CLP interests. You were one of 3 ministers who failed, and I repeat, failed, to acknowledge the Auditor-General when asked for you to respond. As the Territory's first law officer, can you explain why you have ignored this statutory process, why you have still not taken down the misleading posts, and how you consider this conduct aligns with your responsibilities to uphold compliance with the law?
Attorney-General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for Gwadja for the question. He knows all too well about how the Auditor-General does his job as a former Attorney-General himself. And the Auditor-General did, in fact, table that report in Parliament last night. And it did outline that he had a look into some reports that some posts were posted on my social media page by myself. And I can tell you that he also suggested that it was found that that data was not misleading. So what he said was that I posted a post about the Acacia budget blowout of $61 million. Our hospital IT system, $61 million budget blowout, which was under a former Labor government. The Leader of the Opposition, Madam Speaker, was the Minister for Health and she was the Minister for Digital and Corporate Development, which both ministries are responsible for that $61 million budget blowout. So whilst the report is accurate that there was a social media post from my Facebook, the accurate part about it was the fact it was misleading, and he actually quotes that in his report. So it's interesting that you come in here and try and discredit the new CLP government for actions which, I mean, the fact that the budget blowout was so ginormous. I mean, imagine, Madam Speaker, what that $61 million could have been spent on. And the fact that the hospital, one of our major hospitals, our emergency departments here, which have so much demand and had been crippling under a Labor government, they told the Labor government that that new system was going to make things even worse and that lives were at risk. And yet they continued down that path. I mean, the actual system itself is not even... It's not even finished yet. It's going to cost more money to be able to finish that system. And so I don't apologise.
Take your seat, please, Attorney-General. What's your point of order, member for Gwadja?
110 relevance, Madam Speaker. With less than a minute remaining, Attorney-General, you were one of 3 ministers who is clearly highlighted who have failed the Public Information Act. Why did you ignore the request to meet the Auditor-General?
Attorney-General.
Thank you. And he doesn't like listening to the answer. Member for Gwadja, thank you for asking again the same question. But, Madam Speaker, I am answering the question. The Auditor-General came to me with wanting to find out what I'd posted and how I posted, how I found the information. I met with the Auditor-General. I told him where I got the information from, which was from the government, from the Health Minister, to say that there was a $61 million budget blowout. And it says that in the report. And everything was above board. He put the report out and it was tabled last night in Parliament, and that post remains there because it's not misleading. The Auditor-General says it's not misleading. It says that there was a $61 million budget blowout and it was under your watch. The Leader of the Opposition was the Minister for Health the Minister for Digital, Corporate Development. It was her budget blowout, which we highlighted. They don't like us highlighting their failures.
Member for Karama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Lands, Planning and Environment. Minister, it's no secret that Alice Springs' reputation has struggled under the neglect of the disastrous former Labor government. When we came into government, we promised to make Alice Springs once again a great place to live, work and invest. Minister, there has been a number of positive infrastructure announcements for Alice Springs since the CLP returned to government last year. These include projects such as a new public library, a new multicultural centre, a skate park and upgrades to some of Alice Springs' most loved sporting facilities, among other things. Minister, can you please update the House on upcoming residential developments in Alice Springs that will enhance livability and contribute to economic development?
Minister for Lands, Planning and Environment.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Karama for the question. This is a great question, Madam Speaker, because it is a project that I'm very excited to get off the ground right in the heart of Alice Springs. And the project I'm talking about is the one that I recently approved as the Minister for Lands, Planning and Environment, an exceptional development permit for 94 Todd Street, right in the centre of town, commonly referred to locals as the old Malanka site, Madam Speaker. This exciting new development will include 144 dwellings across 4 6-storey buildings and 1 5-storey building, as well as an office space in a single-storey building, ample car parking and designated bicycle parking, Madam Speaker. And everyone in this chamber knows how much I love getting on my bike and getting out in the community. This development represents a significant milestone in the Alice Springs CBD. It's been more than 15 years, Madam Speaker. 15 years since the old Malanka site was torn down. I remember boot scooting when I was a young fella in the old Malanka bar, and I can tell you it's been a shame that for 15 years that significant site, now CBD, has been essentially just a flat bit of land since it's been bulldozed. Since then, several regulatory frameworks have been introduced which ensure that these developments meet the needs of the community whilst fostering sustainable growth. This project has gone through a comprehensive review process, and it will undoubtedly contribute positively to the growth of Alice Springs. Not only will this development provide much-needed housing options for the local community, but it will respect the natural environment by safeguarding 3 sacred trees and preserving other significant trees on the site. There will be a green space in the middle of the development, a positive and welcome output of the revised development plans. We hear so often in this chamber, Madam Speaker, where is the public's ability to have their say? Well, there was a public submission process. People would put in their submissions, and as a result of those submissions, the actual proposed plans were changed, which is leading to 1 less building and more green space. Its proximity to the CBD, schools, hospitals and recreational facilities will promote greater pedestrian movement. Additionally, the thoughtfully designed office building on Hartley Street will maintain a heritage-inspired theme, ensuring design consistently along the street frontage, and that is because it's part of that heritage precinct there along Hartley Street. The views from Anzac Hill, of Heavy Tree Gap and the McDonald Ranges will continue to shine and promote the Red Centre's natural beauty, Madam Speaker. That's what we love in the Red Centre. It's time for us to get projects off the ground, put Alice Springs back on the map and show the industry that the territory is worth investing in. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is for the Treasurer. Treasurer, you've claimed that if large extractive industries are allowed to develop in the territory, benefits will flow to Territorians. Can you be clear with this chamber what exactly will the Northern Territory Government receive from these industries? Specifically, how will the Territory's budget benefit? It's important to clarify that the Territory's budget, the money that the government uses for services, which you've discussed, like health, education and infrastructure, do not increase simply because companies make profits. GSP may rise, but that doesn't mean you get more money. Despite claims from the member for Sanderson and the Deputy Chief Minister that mining and gas contributes significantly to GSP, this talks about all money flowing into the NT, not what Territorians receive. We only get money if companies pay taxes, royalties or employ locals. Can you please let us know how much money we can expect to get from the gas industry and what your government's going to do to ensure we get it? Thank you.
Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for their question. And this feeds into the late night that we spent here last night working through the Territory Coordinator Bill, because that bill is part of the larger picture for developing our economic framework into the future. And part of that economic framework is going to be our resources and mineral sector. And I was very glad and proud to stand with the Chief Minister yesterday on a panel with the Minerals Council promoting our economic framework for the future. But I said I'll talk about what those mineral and resource sectors, including gas, do for the Territory. So if we look at the Beetaloo, I think, if memory serves me correctly, early stages of production out of the Beetaloo will start to produce $8 to $10 million in royalties into the Territory, and that goes into Territory's coffers. And of course, as the Beetaloo grows, those revenues will increase, and some of the future projections in royalties are out into the hundreds of millions of dollars per annum. But it's not just the royalties that the Territory gets from the gas, Madam Speaker, it's also the other benefits we see in the Territory from the construction phase and the development. So as part of the Beetaloo, of course, we need to do the infrastructure corridor that's going to link Tennant Creek through to Darwin. And that's not just going to benefit the Beetaloo, but it's also going to benefit other industries along that corridor. And that corridor is going to take quite a bit of work, Madam Speaker, and we're going to need people and businesses to develop that corridor. So in conjunction with Beetaloo and the money that we receive from royalties there and income tax that we may get from those companies, the other infrastructure projects that support that industry will be generating revenue for the Territory and creating employment. So as those businesses construct and develop, say, those corridors and including Middle Arm, there's more people employed. And more people employed means more people in the Territory, more people in the Territory spending more money. And that development of the economy of those spends from people living here, people moving here, and particularly if we can increase our population, drives increased revenue from the federal government in the way of GST revenue. So everything that we do in the minerals and resource sector starts to drive different parts of our economy and, of course, increases that revenue across a number of spaces within the Territory. And we must understand that mining royalties start to pay the bills, as the member for Nelson has spoken about earlier. And the mantra is that a strong economy in the Northern Territory creates a great Northern Territory. And that is going to be key to the future. And we welcome these industries and these businesses spending money in the Territory because they will start to increase our revenue, whether it be in royalties or in income tax. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Wanguri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education and Training. Secondary education in the Northern Territory is being reformed to support students to complete school and transition into post-school pathways and careers here in the Territory. I know consultation with school councils have kicked off this month with parents and families invited to attend throughout the Territory. And myself and the member for Casuarina attended the forum at Dripstone Middle School last Thursday. Minister, how is the CLP government supporting schools, staff and students with the transition, and how will this transformation ensure that our education for our children is enhanced with these changes, in particular for Dripstone Middle School, where students from my electorate attend?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Wanguri for the question. I know she's extremely passionate about education. I was out with her recently at a childcare centre, and she's doing work with the secondary reform program as well. So I'm pleased to see that the member for Wanguri has engaged with our extensive secondary reform program, which is currently being rolled out across the Territory. And as the member for Wanguri mentioned, school council meetings are an important part of this consultation program. Madam Speaker, I can let the House know that a series of school council meetings have been held this month across Darwin, Palmerston and in Alice Springs. And these meetings have seen significant engagement with school representative bodies and parents, teachers and school staff, as well as student representatives and the learning commissions. This important reform program is about the move away from middle schools in the Territory. This was a key recommendation of the former Labor government's review of secondary education released in 23 and supported by the CLP prior to the election last year. But we need to make sure we get this transition right, Madam Speaker. Changing our decades-old secondary education structure won't happen overnight, and the move away from middle schools will take time and extremely careful planning. And that's why we've kicked off this comprehensive consultation program with planning to continue over the course of the year with no changes to our middle school model in 2025. The shift away from middle school is important and it will be fully supported by the CLP government. A shift away from the middle schools, Madam Speaker, will ensure our student pathways are more aligned to the Territory's skills, needs and, importantly, keep our students remaining engaged throughout their secondary education, helping to boost our shocking attendance rates. So, to update the House on the next steps, Madam Speaker, of the secondary reform, I can advise that planning in March will focus on our urban areas and what the future state of comprehensive high schools, which is years 7 to 12, will look like in these areas, with remote engagement occurring next term. The engagement will help develop tailored delivery models bespoke to each region in the Territory. There's not just a one-size-fits-all, Madam Speaker. We know in some areas of the Territory the transition to comprehensive high schools will be relatively straightforward, but in other areas planning will be significantly more intensive. And I thank the teachers, parents attending our meetings so far and providing valuable input in the future planning of secondary school in their local community. Following this important engagement, high-level plans for each impacted school will be developed over the course of the year. These plans will indefinitely identify implementation priorities such as changes to infrastructure, curriculum and pathways, staff and student transitions and transportation. A phased transition to the new secondary education model will then commence, Madam Speaker, from next year. Thank you.
Member for Arafura.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. Minister Hersey, the Auditor General, whom we hosted today at our PSC meeting, found that your social media posts breached Public Information Act because they were misleading and politically biased. You've since agreed to remove these posts, the only minister found in breach of the law to do so. But can you explain to Territorians why you published these misleading information in the first place and what steps you've taken that this breach doesn't happen again?
Minister for Education.
Thank you. I thank the member for the question, and I think the Attorney-General summed it up quite nicely before, but I will reiterate and just explain my part in that, Madam Speaker. So, yes, the report was tabled last night. I did meet with the Auditor-General and I had to explain to him where the post was from, that it was from our government. I posted it on my social media page. The information came from the Health Minister, and as we did here before, the Health Minister that this cloud came under, Madam Speaker, was in actual fact the opposition leader. So the facts of the matter are that in January we revealed that the Acacia budget for the patient health record system blew out by $61 million. From $259 million to $320 million. Now, Madam Speaker, these were facts. This is stating the facts. The Health Minister had a media release stating the facts of what happened under the previous government, under the opposition leader. So whilst that is all factual information, I did explain to the Auditor-General that it was my post, it is my social media, I am in charge of my social media, and as the Attorney-General said, it was actually not misleading. So, as I've said, the Leader of the Opposition was both the Minister for Health, the Minister for Corporate and Digital Development, she was actually in charge of that at the time. The budget blowout was never told to Territorians until we've come to government. And that's not the only landmine, Madam Speaker, that we have actually uncovered since coming to government. And, we went from, I think it was a $1.8 billion debt to now we're $11 billion. Now, Madam Speaker, this is why we can't roll out things across the Territory to make sure that education, health, police, all these things that money by blowing out a budget of that amount from $259 million to $320 million. That is absolutely, words escape me, Madam Speaker. It is just unfathomable how they can just continue to let that go on. And that was just one of the many things, and I spoke yesterday about the portable long service leave. You know, we are repealing the portable long service leave because this was yet another scheme uncosted by the previous Labor government, Madam Speaker. So, you know, you can stand up, member for Arafura, and ask me about my social media post, but you were actually part of the government that made this absolute blowout and left us with this absolute crisis that we are in at the moment.
Member for Fong, supplementary. Member for Arafura.
Minister, if it was factual, why did the Auditor General want to request from you?
Minister for Education.
The Auditor General, you know, as we've seen before, and the opposition leader did actually have, there was a post about our health minister in one of the bathrooms here as well. The Auditor General, it is in his role to ask about, you know, posts that we do on social media. So, you know, that was also one of the ones that.
Order, please.
So,
Silence.
Madam Speaker, the Auditor General, as I said, I met with the Auditor General. I explained to him where the information from the post came from. It was from a media release from the Health Minister. It is my social media. It is my account that I put the information on. And, you know, I can't help it, Madam Speaker, but the facts are the facts. And the opposition leader, who was the health minister at the time, should be actually navel-gazing and having a look at herself.
Member for Fong Lim. Silence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Silence, please.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for International Education, Migration and Population. Minister, although we have a small population which has sadly been in decline under the last government's leadership, Northern Territorians know that the Territory is a great place to live, work and raise a family. Minister, can you update the House on the work that's being done to encourage migration to the Northern Territory, to grow our population and strengthen our economy? And moreover, Minister, can you also update the House on the benefits that come with a growth in the Territory's population?
Minister for International Education, Migration and Population.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for Fong Lim for the question. I'd also like to thank you for the work that you're doing in this space as your role as the Assistant Minister for International Education, Population and Migration, as well as in your community, supporting the multicultural community. Madam Speaker, skilled migration is critical to our workforce. An analysis undertaken by Charles Darwin University found each additional skilled migrant contributes around $108,000 annually to the gross regional product, with migration forecast to contribute $1.4 billion to the NT economy between 2021 and 2027. We've established a dedicated Office of Workforce Development to drive workforce development and support businesses with the goal of attracting and retaining skilled workers, ensuring businesses have the workforce they need to grow. Our General Skilled Migration Program works to attract migrants with in-demand skills to fill workforce gaps. This year, the program will deliver 1,600 skill visa nominations annually, which is expected to bring in around 3,000 new Territorians when family members are included. To support our work in this area, we have the Skilled Worker Engagement and Support Program to provide information, for example, a welcome guide with information on jobs, accommodation, health, and to help migrants settle in the Territory. Madam Speaker, today I signed the NT Dharma Mark III, an NT-specific employer-sponsored migration program with concessions from standard national visa criteria to make it easier for NT businesses to fill workforce shortages. The best in the country. Dharma 3 increases our visa allocation from 625 to 1,500 per year. We negotiated an additional 190 skills, giving employers access to 325 skill sets under this agreement, most critically in the construction industry. Madam Speaker, our Global Worker Attraction campaign targets domestic and overseas markets with upcoming campaigns including online seminars in South Africa, the United Kingdom and Ireland in May, and a face-to-face NT Jobs Expo and seminars in New Zealand in July 2025. A digital marketing campaign will launch in June to July 25 to attract workers from Melbourne, Ipswich, Adelaide, South Perth, and ACT. Our Worker Connection platform allows NT employers to post jobs for free, enabling job seekers to access from across the globe. Search our NT-based job program, and currently there are 13,379 registered jobs and 511 registered employees. These initiatives demonstrate our CLP's absolute commitment to growing our population and driving the economy forward.
Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Lands, Planning and Environment. Minister, a document obtained under Freedom of Information recently by Lock the Gate Alliance shows that on the 29th of July 2024, a briefing was provided to then Minister for Renewables and Energy, Kate Worden, in relation to a potential prosecution under the Petroleum Act of Imperial Oil and Gas, aka Empire Energy, for fracking and or related activities on Exploration Permit 187. Even though the brief document itself has been withheld under privilege. Minister, the incident itself is not legally privileged, so what was the nature of the presumably very serious environmental incident that was the subject of the brief, and why is it being kept secret by your government, given traditional owners are right now being asked to agree to the sale of exploration gas from Imperial for EP 187, and any agreement signed without full disclosure is likely to have been negotiated under false pretence?
Minister for Lands, Planning and Environment.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Nightcliff for her question. Without having the details specifically of what she's talking about, I will speak directly to the reportable incident of which I am aware, Madam Speaker. So Imperial Oil and Gas had a reportable incident, and the reportable incident remains under investigation, Madam Speaker. Authorised inspectors are reviewing information provided by Imperial Oil and Gas Planning, who attended the site. Sampling and information collected as part of the investigation will inform the regulatory response. It's so important, Madam Speaker, to, understand how these things come about. When a suspected spill is alleged to have occurred, the reportable incident is reported by Imperial Oil and Gas to the regulator, who then sends people out to site to inspect what exactly has occurred. On the 11th of January 2025, Imperial and Gas notified the Department of Lands, Planning and Environment of a reportable incident at an Imperial Oil and Gas onshore gas well site in the Beetaloo Sub-Basin. I'm assuming that is what we're talking about here. The incident involved the release of fluid from a well site, initially thought to be rainwater, which was later found to be contaminated, or it's been described to me, Madam Speaker, as saline water. Authorised inspectors attended the site on the 15th of January 2025 and took water and soil samples of the incident area. An inspector's direction under Section 89L1 of the Petroleum Act 1984 was issued on the 22nd of January 2025, directing Imperial to undertake actions to minimise environmental harm. Once again, Madam Speaker, it is so important that we look at, whenever these incidents occur, that we're ensuring that there is a response from the necessary regulatory framework. Madam Speaker, I will continue to look into exactly what the member for Nightcliff has raised in question time today, and ensure that anything to which I haven't been able to properly address is addressed in future responses. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Supplementary question, please, 106.
No, I'm sorry, that's been used already by the member for Arafura. Member for Blaine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Major Events and Minister for Tourism and Hospitality. The Northern Territory is home to some of the most iconic events in the country, from the Darwin Festival to the Finke Desert Race. These events bring thousands of visitors to the Territory each year and are critical in supporting local businesses, creating jobs and boosting our economy. Minister, I understand the government is exploring ways to strengthen the connection between major events and tourism to maximise visitation and deliver better outcomes. Can you please explain how this approach will help rebuild the Territory's economy and ensure we are making the most of our world-class events to drive tourism growth?
Minister for Tourism and Hospitality and Major Events.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Blaine for his question and also recognising the critical role that major events play in the Territory's economy. And you're right, the CLP government is committed to rebuilding the economy, and a key part of this is ensuring that our tourism and events sectors are working together, Madam Speaker. They need to work together strategically to attract more visitors, drive investment and create jobs. And that is why we are indeed exploring the integration of Northern Territory Major Events Company and Tourism NT. We need to create a more targeted and effective approach to destination marketing and major event promotion. Madam Speaker, for 25 years, NTMEC has successfully delivered large-scale events, and over time, its focus has shifted towards attracting visitors to the Territory, which aligns closely with the Tourism NT's objectives. And by better aligning these efforts, we can strengthen our brand, increase national and international visitation, and deliver stronger economic outcomes for Territorians. And, Madam Speaker, a more coordinated strategy will also allow us to maximise the impact of iconic events such as Bass in the Grass and the V8 supercars by ensuring they are marketed effectively to those key tourism markets that we leverage into. And of course, leveraging the combined expertise in events management and the destination marketing so that we can reach that broader audience. We definitely need to do more with what we've got. We need to create efficiencies and reinvest resources into growing visitation and supporting our tourism operators. Of course, we have to rebuild our economy by driving spending in our accommodation, hospitality sectors, and of course, our local businesses. And Madam Speaker, over time, NTMEC's role has evolved beyond event management. We're looking towards a more mature model, and this integration is the first step in making that happen. And this is similar to other destinations. This is not new, it's been done before. And this will enhance the Territory's ability to promote major events as a powerful tourism tool. By integrating the two, we are ensuring a smarter, more cohesive approach to tourism and event marketing, and that approach, as I said, will deliver real economic benefits to the Territory. And I will just highlight that under Labor, the visitation had declined and the industry did lack direction. And the mismanagement, as an example of a particular major event in the MXGP, was an absolute budget blowout that we are now having to find the money to do and deliver on time and on budget.
Member for Arafura.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Public Employment. Northern Territory public servants, including teachers and health workers, all have portable long service leave entitlements, as they deserve. Will you tell Territorians working in childcare, aged care, disability service and social services, community legal services, why they aren't worthy of the same entitlements?
Minister for Public Service.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Don't look so surprised.
No, I thought it was public employment, but it's public service. Yeah.
Yes, I thank the member for Arafura for the question, and we have actually spoken quite a bit about this, the portable long service leave, Madam Speaker, which we spoke about yesterday. I've answered questions in question time. But what I will say, Madam Speaker, is this is another scheme that was not costed out and was thrown at, the Territorians 3 months before the election. And I did just speak about that in my speech this morning. So, again, yes, as the Health Minister says, another failed stunt. There are many of these schemes, Madam Speaker. The Attorney-General just spoke about the motocross. We literally don't have enough time in one day, unless we do an all-nighter almost like we did last night, Madam Speaker, to go on about all the failings and the uncosted projects that were left to us with these landmines from the previous Labor government. So what that meant, Madam Speaker, is that it would have forced that cost onto families of parents, in childcare, taking their children to childcare. So it would have actually cost those organisations an extra $50,000. And that is, as I said earlier today, and I answered in questions yesterday, that is not a cost that those businesses can bear. They would have had to have passed that on to the parents and families using that childcare service. So, you know, and if it was such a great scheme, we had 8 years of Labor, Madam Speaker. Why did it come out 3 months before the election? If it was so good and you thought it was actually such an amazing thing to support all these people that we 100% think are great workers out there, aged care, you know, childcare, you know, all these workers that are out there in these industries. We had 8 years of Labor, Madam Speaker, yet 3 months before the election, they decide to roll out this scheme.
Take your seat, Minister. What's your point of order? Member for Daly.
Zero relevance, Madam Speaker. I'll just ask that the Minister brings it back to touching on the question itself, which is, will you tell Territorians working in childcare, aged care, disability services, social services, youth services and community legal services why they aren't worthy of the same entitlements? That's the question.
Minister, it's your call.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think I was answering the question actually quite well. It just seems though that, you know, the opposition, being the government for the last 8 years, don't actually like the fact that 3 months before the election, they went out tricking Territorians into a scheme that was uncosted, you know, no funding towards it moving in the future. I pick up on the interjections from the opposition leader. I am listening to myself, Madam Speaker, because I'm the one actually answering the question that they've asked of me, and this was not costed, tricking Territorians 3 months before the election, 8 years of Labor failing, Madam Speaker.
Member for Goyder. Silence.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Trade, Business and Asian Relations. I would appreciate being able to hear the answer on this one. Minister, the Northern Territory's economy was going backwards under the last 8 years of a Labor government. As highlighted today in this place, the CLP restored the Asian Relations portfolio to government to emphasise the importance we place on increasing trade and investment activity across the region. As part of the CLP's government's plan to rebuild the economy, can you inform the House of the importance of re-engaging with our Asian neighbours and, in particular, the importance of progressing the historic Memorandum of Understanding signed with Indonesia around critical minerals and strategic material supply chains?
Minister for Trade, Business and Asian Relations, and you will be heard in silence.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. Much appreciated. And thank you to the member for Goyder for your question. I know how important growing our economy is to you and your electorate. Critical to growing our economy is engagement with Asia, and this is why this is such a priority for our CLP government. As a close neighbour, Indonesia is a natural partner for the Territory. It was for this reason I signed a Critical Minerals and Strategic Materials Supply Chain Memorandum of Understanding, the first of its kind between Indonesia and any sub-national Australian jurisdiction, with Indonesia at the Australian Business Council the Australia-Indonesia Business Council Conference in Sydney last year. Last month, I led a delegation to Indonesia to progress the MOU. I met with Indonesia's Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs as well as the head of the Indonesian Ministry for Minerals and Resources. These are big players, not junior staffers wheeled out as a courtesy. In a time of geopolitical uncertainty, our friends and neighbours are looking for trusted partners, and we are Indonesia's trusted partner. This MOU matters to Indonesia. We've agreed with the Indonesian government that we will establish a bilateral working group to take the MOU forward and make sure it is actioned and not relegated to a box in a cupboard in some government department. Madam Speaker, the Northern Territory has known deposits of most of the critical minerals that are essential for electric vehicles, batteries, lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese and graphite, which will support Indonesia's goal of becoming an EV production hub. Their plan is for 600,000 vehicles by 2030. Indonesia wants our MOU on critical minerals and supply chains to work because we can supply the inputs upon which their economic development relies. In Jakarta, I met with companies and stakeholders from some of the largest companies in Asia who are already investing in Australia. We need them to invest here in the Territory as well. We're expecting many of the companies we spoke to visit us sometime in the next few months as part of a delegation. The rapid growth of the Indonesian economy presents opportunities for mutual benefits in both our regions. The team at the Department of Trade, Business and Asian Relations and our CLP government are committed to working on partnerships with our Asian neighbours and Indonesia, and this is an absolutely critical part of rebuilding the Territory's economy. There have been some who've come before in the business sector. There are some who are new to the Territory. Every single business that we met with wants more information and to better understand what our government can offer and how good the business environment is here for them to invest in.
Member for Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is for Minister Boothby. Minister Boothby, the screen industry in the Northern Territory has rapidly expanded in the last 5 years, with major series from Netflix, Stan and Amazon Prime all coming to the Northern Territory, spending millions and employing local crew. How do you as the Minister plan to keep the momentum of this positive and culturally influential sector going? Thank you.
Minister, which portfolio is that?
This is under Tourism and Hospitality.
Okay, Tourism and Hospitality.
Thank you. Thank you, Member for Johnson, for the question. And I'm excited to answer this one. I think it's the first question that I've had on Screen Territory. And I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of a background about Screen Territory, because it turns out that for those who don't know in the Territory, is that it was actually the CLP who first advocated for a Screen Territory and first supported the idea for Screen to be here in our wonderful home of the Northern Territory. And it was not long after that there was an election, so there was a new Labor government. And luckily the Labor government did start to put some money into it. Not as much as the CLP was going to put into it, nonetheless some money. So I should also add that we've done the numbers of Screen Territory because we are going through some budgets and looking at what works and what doesn't. And we're doing this right across government because what has been working over the last over the last 8 years, there's been things that have worked and there's things that haven't worked, and we need to know what they are. With Screen Territory, what we do know is that for every $1 invested in local screen production, our economy sees at least $4 in return. And that's thanks to increased employment, spending on local goods and services, and tourism. Our reputation as a go-to filming destination actually does continue to build, and that's quite exciting. We had the Netflix series called Territory, which happened late last year, and that employed 292 Territorians. It engaged over 100 Territory businesses, and it actually reached #1 globally after 3 days of release. The spin-offs of the Netflix series Territory were phenomenal as well. People were talking about the Territory right around the globe. Whether you've seen it or not, please know that it is being talked about, especially with our United States friends, and we do have more visitors coming from the States, and they are talking about the fact that they've seen the Territory.
Minister, please take your seat. Member for Johnston, what is your point of order?
110 relevance. I'm interested in knowing what the Minister is doing to support the ongoing growth of this. Thank you.
Minister, you've got the call. Plenty of time.
Thank you, and I definitely feel like I'm answering the question. We will be looking at Screen Territory to ensure that we continue to invest in it. There's another new film that's coming up very, very soon. It's a high-end family feature film called Kangaroo. That'll be in cinemas on September 18. And of course, that was filmed in and around Alice Springs last year. So again, we're putting Central Australia on the global stage, which is fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to seeing Kangaroo. And if that in itself isn't a support for the Screen Territory future, then I'm not sure what is, but I'm very excited about this and will continue to support the industry.
Member for Drysdale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Community Development. Minister, as I've said previously, in my suburbs of Grey, Driver and Gunn, in the electorate of Drysdale, my constituents have had enough. They've had enough of their lives being torn apart by too many cases, week in, week out, day in, day out, by tenants and associated visitors that demonstrate zero respect for our community. Enough of seeing the housing and services paid for by the Territory taxpayer treated with contempt and trashed. Minister, can you please update the House on the work you are undertaking with your department to make the few that so drastically affect the lives of many accountable?
Minister for Housing, Local Government and Community Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Drysdale for his question. I know how important this is and I know it's close to your heart. The inaction of the Labor government over the last 8 years to address problematic tenancies within social housing has resulted in the mess that CLP are now required to untangle and clean up. Member for Drysdale, as you've alluded to, law-abiding Territorians have been forced to endure neighbours from hell, whilst hard-working housing staff have tried to deal with these issues. Member for Drysdale, I know your hard work and your electorate working tirelessly for the good folk of Drysdale. They are fed up with the state of play across the Territory, just like other residents across the many other electorates that I've visited. They are fed up with crime, rampant community expectations being grossly neglected. It is obvious that over the last 8 years under Labor have bent over backwards to accommodate those who have repeatedly broken the law, broken the rules, broken the basic tenancy agreements at the expense of those who do the right thing. In fact, in the last 4 years, the number of antisocial complaints has really remained unchanged, remaining between 8,000 to 10,000 per annum. However, action taken by Labor to hold tenants accountable has dropped by at least 50%. So what does this mean? Were reports of antisocial behaviour in public tenancies swept under the rug? Or is it that the threshold for repeated breaches was raised so high it became practically unreachable? Member for Drysdale, you'll be pleased to note that our housing reform empowers our staff to refine processes for tenancy termination, ensuring that matters referred for tenancy termination or evictions, as they're well known, are prepared, supported by strong evidence and aligned with legislative requirements. We are backing in our hard-working housing staff. Public housing tenants who cause repeated disturbances, threaten their neighbours and blatantly disregard community standards will be called to account. The days of second chances are over, Madam Speaker, with Labor setting a benchmark for inaction on seeking termination despite the amount of red card demerit points. Madam Speaker, the days of no support for departmental staff are over. We're getting behind our staff. We're giving them the encouragement and support they need to get on with the job. The days of no respite for the community are over. We are determined to work with Territorians to strengthen policy, to fast-track evictions and take a serious stance against antisocial behaviour in social housing. We are determined to challenge the status quo and change...
Oh. Sorry,
Sorry,
Minister, continue. I thought there was a point of order.
the clock wasn't stopped, Madam Speaker. Do I get a chance to finish?
Please sit down. I thought the member for Nightcliff had a point of order. My apologies, Minister. Please continue.
Thank you. We are determined to challenge the status quo and change the narrative. If you can't follow the rules, there are plenty on our extensive wait list that should and will have the opportunity to take up public housing. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And while I'm on my feet, any further questions should be placed on the written notice paper.